Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed monthly GPU pricing update. This month we finally have some good news to share regarding graphics card pricing and availability, with things really starting to head in the right direction for buyers. Now, of course, inflated pricing isn't over yet and won't be anytime soon, but this month it has never been a better time to purchase a new GPU in the last year. Since our previous update, there have been 2 new GPU launches onto the market, so let's take a look at how they are shaking up first. I am, of course, talking about the AMD Radeon RX 6500 XT, a card that we very much did not like, and Nvidia's Geforce Rtx 3050, a reasonable product that was always going to be overpriced. These are the first cards of the generation to launch with an MSRP below $300, and as such have hit the market with pricing below $500. I'll start here by looking at the RX 6500 XT. This is the first card of the generation that has basically been in stock and available since day one. Now, in typical AMD fashion, we did see a few GPUs hit the market at $200 US around launch day, but since then that price has largely disappeared in some regions. This has happened with the last couple of AMD launches, with retailers telling us at launch that resupplies for the card beyond the first batch were going to be above MSRP. Currently, if you want to buy an RX 6500 XT, they are available on the ever unreliable Newegg for as low as $260 US, but they can be found for cheaper in other regions, like here in Australia. In fact, we have access to almost MSRP cards here. PCKSki will happily sell you a 6500 XT from PowerColor for just 320 Australian dollars, which equates to around 210 US before tax. Mindfactory in Germany will also sell you an MSI model for as low as 235 euros, which is just 10% over the US MSRP before tax. So it seems that the US market is lagging a little behind on pricing for this card right now. In our review of the 6500 XT, we said we wouldn't consider buying it at anything above the MSRP, and ideally this card should be priced more like $150 US or less. But it does seem that available stock is approaching the MSRP, which bodes well for the card and buyers. Don't be tempted to pay inflated prices on this one, as it looks like the MSRP is well within reach. As expected, things aren't looking quite as good for the Geforce Rtx 3050. Pricing debuted around $600 for this GPU on retail shelves, which is absolutely disgusting for a $250 MSRP product. And while prices have since fallen quite a bit in the weeks after launch, the 3050 still sits nowhere near MSRP. The cheapest card on Newegg right now is only available in a bundle for $455, and that bundle includes a B450 motherboard, which Newegg might ship to you broken and then refuse a return on. So it's not exactly an enticing proposition. In Australia, again, we're in a slightly better position. The cheapest RTX 3050 is from Inno3D, and it'll set you back 550 Aussie, which is about 360 US before tax. Similar story at Mindfactory, where the cheapest RTX 3050s are also around that $360 US price point before tax. This is still $110 of price inflation, but it does appear that pricing is creeping closer to the MSRP each week, which bodes well for patient buyers. In our review of the RTX 3050, we said the card ideally should cost no more than $370 US, so in some regions that pricing has become a reality. However, since our review, the entire market has dropped in price, so that $370 assessment is kinda no longer valid. For example, we showed the 3050 being much better value than the RX 6600 and a better buy than the 6500 XT at these prices. However, in regions where the 3050 is less than $370 US, the 6500 XT is now near MSRP, and the RX 6600 can be had for just $430 US or thereabouts. This makes the RX 6600 about 19% more expensive for 26% more performance at 1440p, so the 6600 is still the better bang for buck purchase. But to be fair, the RTX 3050 isn't horrible at those prices, and it's a far better situation than if the card cost, say, $450. What we've seen here with the 6500 XT and RTX 3050 is also the case for most other graphics cards. Pricing for new in-stock models at major retailers globally is much lower than it has been over the last 6 months. Availability is also the best it has been, even for some of the most popular models. It wasn't too long ago that RTX 3070 Ti's were retailing for about $1,800 Australian dollars or more. Today the cheapest models are $1,300. RTX 3060s used to be $1,200 AUD back in September. Now they are more like $830, so that's a substantial price movement. One retailer told us that pricing is continuing to drop at a very decent pace for new shipments and resupplies, and this should be reflected in retail pricing over the next few weeks. It's not the case where GPU prices have hit the floor just yet. There is still a lot of room for pricing to improve, and it sounds like that will keep happening in the early parts of 2022. So why are GPU prices now falling? Well, the reason is very simple: the prolonged decline of profitability for cryptocurrency mining. Since the start of November, 3.5 months ago, GPU mining profitability has been declining each month. Compared to this time last month, profits are down between 15 and 30% in most cases, depending on the GPU you have. Since October, profits are down over 50% based on watt to mine data. This significantly increases the length of time it takes to turn a profit from buying a new graphics card, which reduces mining demand. On top of that, there's now an established months-long trend of declining profitability, which further hurts the appeal of adding new GPUs to mining rigs. That's not to say that miners have stopped buying GPUs altogether. The Ethereum network's difficulty is still rising, suggesting more GPUs, or at least some sort of mining hardware, are still being added. But higher difficulty hurts profitability hard when the value of the coins themselves are going down. There's also been a clear slowdown in the pace at which difficulty rises since about December, which is also good news for GPU buyers. The effect on GPU prices as measured in the scalper market is clear. Pricing for most models is at or very close to the lowest price recorded in the past 12 months. This is a look at Nvidia GPUs, and you'll see since December that prices for all models are trending down, and the majority of these cards are now cheaper than the previous low in July. In terms of a month-on-month decline, Nvidia GPUs have fallen in price by 7% on average, and we're finally seeing average price inflation below 100% for the first time in a long time. In January, the average price drop was 4%, and we haven't seen a monthly drop this large since July, so hopefully we'll see more green in this table next month. AMD cards haven't quite hit their lowest price in the last 12 months, but they are very close for all models except the 6700 XT. The pricing gap for the RX 6800 versus 6800 XT has finally been restored to a more normal level, with that card seeing a decent drop in price, while availability is respectable for all models these days. In particular, the RX 6600 is now at its lowest price and can often be found even cheaper at retail stores than on the scalper market. Like brand new Nvidia cards, AMD cards fell month on month, on this occasion to the tune of a 6% average. AMD price inflation is now at 70%, and I think there's a fair bit of room for that to get lower in the coming months. These are also the largest drops in price for over 6 months for most models. And like I was saying earlier, the price floor for new GPUs hasn't yet been reached, and I believe there's still quite a lot of room for pricing to get lower in the coming months, provided GPU mining doesn't make a sudden and sharp recovery. While prices today are now slightly lower than the previous best results in July of 2021, mining profitability today is significantly lower than it was in July. In many cases, profitability has halved. Right now, we appear to be in a period where a backlog of normal GPU demand is being cleared, and if this remains the case, the outlook for pricing is positive. The used market has seen much more significant price drops this month than in the new market. For Nvidia's Geforce 20 series, pricing is down 13% on average, and cards are almost back to their MSRP levels, at least for some models. It's particularly good to see a bit of movement for products like the RTX 2060, which were hideously overpriced in prior months and are now approaching more reasonable levels. Similar story for the Geforce 16 series. We now have new GPU entrants that are competing with these products, finally, and that's helped see prices fall by 12% on average. Now, most cards here are still very overpriced, in particular for the GTX 1660 Super and GTX 1650 Super, but a strong reduction in price month on month is what I like to see. Pascal cards also fell in price by 14% on average, and we are so close to seeing every card sitting below its launch MSRP on the used market. It's unclear how much life Pascal products have left in them, not necessarily from a hardware failure perspective, but in terms of performance and driver support, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this market hit the hardest if used GPU prices continue to tumble. AMD's RX 5000 series fell in price by 13% month on month, although price inflation is still very high, as these cards are exceptionally good at mining relative to their gaming performance. If you're still using an RX 5700 XT for gaming and not mining, I'd recommend trying to move that card on as soon as possible and instead upgrading to a newer GPU for only a small price difference. I think this series is also one where we'll see larger than average price drops in the coming months. And then we get to AMD's older GPU series, including the evergreen Polaris. This is where we continue to see problems for the RX 6500 XT. Right now you can buy a used RX 570 4GB for just $183 on average, which is a decent stopgap solution and substantially cheaper than the 6500 XT's $270 asking price. Another suitable option would be the GTX 1650 Super, which are roughly the same price as the 6500 XT, but faster and more feature-rich. If this sort of pricing trend continues for used products, the 6500 XT will need to keep getting cheaper and quickly hit the MSRP. I've been making these GPU pricing update videos for over a year now, and this is perhaps the only month where it's really felt like things are heading in the right direction. There's been a solid trend of GPU prices dropping for a few months now, and crypto mining profitability is at a very low level compared to most of 2021. When we're seeing the lowest new GPU prices in a year, the best availability in some time, and significant drops in the used market, pretty much everything we're looking to happen has happened. How long this trend will hold is, of course, unclear because we have seen a few months of price declines before. However, the general state of the GPU market is better than in those prior months, with a wider range of GPUs targeting more price points, and supply chain issues are slowly being resolved. So at least there is some hope that the days of GPU prices being 3 times above MSRP are now behind us. The main question at the moment is, when should you buy a GPU? Should you jump in now or continue to wait in the hope that pricing will get better? Or alternatively, should you purchase a stopgap GPU until pricing recovers? In my opinion, there's still a lot of room for GPU pricing to fall further, and the sentiment from retailers is that pricing will continue to come down in the short term. We're probably never going to see MSRP level pricing on some cards, especially those launched in 2020, but current inflation is still quite high at over 70% in most cases. Plenty of room for prices to still come down. So based on that, if you can wait a bit longer, that's what I would be doing, especially if you're interested in a high-end GPU, where waiting a month could mean a $100 drop in price or more. If you don't desperately need a new GPU, and let's face it, you've probably been waiting a while as is, then I'd be on the hunt for pricing closer to the bottom of the market, especially given trends are looking pretty reasonable. However, I would be keeping a close eye on the crypto market, especially mining profitability. If there starts to be a prolonged surge in crypto and mining, longer than say a couple of weeks, that's when I'd be looking to buy before prices go up again. Use your best judgment in those situations and you'll find yourself with the best deal and prevent a bit of sadness in a volatile market. If you do desperately need a new GPU, for example if your current card is not powerful enough for the latest games, well, pricing is the best that it's been for the last 12 months, so it's far from a bad time to jump into the market. Especially if you're targeting more the mid to lower end of the market, GPUs like the Radeon RX 6600 are offering good value right now, and of course you can see our full thoughts on what GPUs to get in our latest Best GPUs video. As for stopgap GPU options, I generally wouldn't take this path and would just wait it out with what you have, but if you do need a stopgap GPU, I'd be looking at products that will lose the least amount in dollar value if the used market continues to fall. So something like an RX 570 that only costs around $200 would be a good bet here. If that falls to $150 or even $120 in price, you're only down $50 to $80. As opposed to getting a $400 card where if it loses a big chunk of its value, you're suddenly down $150 to $200, and that is going to hurt your budget for a new card. Anything with more than 4GB of VRAM is more likely to lose value if crypto continues to fall, as those cards are more sought after for mining, so that's another factor to keep in mind, and probably why I'd also be looking at something like an RX 570 4GB as a stopgap GPU option. Anyway, that's it for this monthly look at GPU pricing. A good month. A positive month. Let's hope that continues in the coming months as well, and hopefully we'll start to see prices get a little bit closer to the MSRP, which I think will be really the time to go and buy a new GPU if you have been waiting out all this time. If you're interested in supporting our testing, our analysis, things like that, then we do have our Patreon and Floatplane accounts. Links to those are in the description below. You'll gain access to things like monthly live streams, Discord chat, behind the scenes videos, all sorts of good stuff. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Ni se te ocurre enfadar a mi martillo.
colors.
That I kind of want Nick here for, just
Yes.
in case he has any insight. It says, so the shirts aren't American Apparel anymore. I love how your American Apparel shirts fit. Personally, disconnected from the store, I don't talk about any of this stuff ever. I can't really tell a difference in terms of fit.
Mission accomplished. That was exactly the goal.
Yeah.
Because consistency is... Your hand doesn't fit in it at all.
Not even slightly.
I love it. Consistency is like, honestly, 80% of the battle. We actually had a lot of internal debate around different materials. There was a lot of push internally for like a bamboo-based fabric. There was a lot of push internally for playing around with the cotton poly blend. The blend that American Apparel uses, it turns out, is extremely unusual. It's a 50-50. And what's way more common is a 60-40 or a 70-30 blend. 60-40 is the big one, though. And so if there were cases where we would go to fabric wholesalers and they'd be like, 50-50, what's that? No, we literally cannot create it. And we're sitting here going, well, do you make fabrics or not? Isn't that your entire job, to make fabrics? I forget where I was going with this story, but it's like ridiculous. So anyway, because it was so important to me that the feel be consistent, because people love our shirts. Like, have you seen the reviews of any design of shirt?
Yeah.
There'll be comments about the design, but a lot of it is just like, especially on like mystery shirt. Some people get upset because they get like 3 of the same one. They order like 3 mystery shirts and they get like all the same one. We've mostly resolved that, by the way, guys. We actually go out of our way to print like old out of print designs sometimes, so that mystery shirt will just have like kind of fun random stuff in it.
Cool.
And if you get more than one, reach out to support.
If you get more than one of the same one, yeah, reach out to support. We'll get you sorted out.
This is the 60-40.
This is a 60-40. Yes. Oh, I didn't even actually realize that.
So this is a 60-40, but it feels basically the same.
So the point was, we needed to find something that had the same feel, because people love the shirts, and we didn't want to put ourselves in a situation where people are going to go, man, these guys' shirts used to be really nice.
Yeah.
How much would that suck?
Yeah.
I don't need that in my life. So it's launched. It's out there. The privateer shirt will be your first. What is this face you're making? Oh my goodness. This will be your first opportunity to try our own label shirts. There was actually one other reason for us to do this, and it had to do with getting our trademark application sorted out. So if we didn't have our own label on the garment, it was going to affect our ability to get our LTT or LTT store or whatever the trademark application was through, because there's a big difference between printing your logo on someone else's garment versus having your own garment with your own labeling and your own your own care tag, your own product makeup stuff. Anyway, so pretty cool.
So
It's in your eye. Oh man.
So for mine, I was shooting with A Prime.
Me too.
And I have a hard time not laughing if something's funny. So half of these shots, I'm pretty sure I'm like literally mid laughing, because he would tell me, like, I'd be trying to make an angry face and I'd feel like I'd be doing an okay job, and he'd be like, look constipated. And I would just burst out laughing.
Good. 2 eye patches. The world's unluckiest pirate.
I have no clue what's happening with my left hand in that photo.
Yeah.
I don't remember doing that. I feel like I was going to like do something else, and he just took the photo.
I mean, you clearly couldn't see what you were doing, so there's that.
True. Yeah.
I think
It was fun, though.
my
It was fun to
favorite
do.
for me is definitely this one.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good.
I was talking to him about it because that stupid gun had like an orange, this is definitely a toy tip on it. Man, when we were kids, like, toy guns were still cool. They didn't have to have and it's not just an orange tip. It's like this big around. Like, it has like an orange plunger on the end of it. It's so dumb.
It's big.
Anyway, I was like, hey, can you Photoshop that off? And can you actually give me like a muzzle blast on it? And he's like, sure.
So we also launched the...
Oh, that's right. This isn't the only launch.
The women's stuff.
I forgot about that. Home. So our first ladies' garment is finally here. I'm sorry for everyone who was excited for the underwear. It's not the underwear yet. That is coming. But our first ladies' garment is going to be this. The women's cropped sweatshirt and the women's high-waisted sweatpants. So we asked the ladies in the office to model this up for us. Got Yvonne, Nicole. Oh, that's so cool. They all coordinated to go be on set together. That's awesome. Oh, and hey, how does the mouse over thing work where you can...
Sorry, we didn't have time to put it on this one. It's on everything else.
Oh, that's not on this one yet.
For the stuff for today.
Okay, so the stuff for today doesn't have it, but every other item on the store says the size the model is wearing now. So it'll give you a better idea of
If you go to Swag,
whether you can expect it to fit or not. Oh, this is so fun. Look at these guys in their matching. Actually, you guys probably don't know some of these people. So Sarah, obviously. And then we've got Nicole, and then that's Emily, who's one of our editors. There you go. Did my picture where I ambushed Yvonne end up in here?
Yep, it's there. There's just a million photos, so it's
Yeah.
hard to find.
I snuck up on her. She didn't know I was coming.
That one's funny. I like that.
She's wearing the black one. Anyway, so yeah, we've got the women's cropped sweatshirt, and we've got the high-waisted sweatpants. There they are. Do.
and then if you go to Swag, you can see that also.
Sure, I'll show you the Swacket thing.
Is there logos on the women's clothes?
I don't think there's anything on these.
Also, the rose color on the store.
Yeah, we need to. Today was a little crazy.
Yeah,
Today was a little hectic. I think
Power went out. and
I think
stuff.
this had like 40 images or something like that. I mean, we never go easy on the images.
No.
So, yeah, sometimes it takes some time, and there was a power outage today, so that was pretty cool. Anyway, there it is. Oh, yeah, okay, Nick insists that I show you guys.
It's cool.
Insist that I show you
You've
guys
been
the
asking
sizing
for
thing. It
forever.
is very cool. So model line is size medium. So as you go through, you can see who is
On
it.
your screen.
Oh shoot, yeah, sorry. Who is it? What size are they wearing? And then we're, I think, working on a feature where you're going to be able to see other LTT items that are also pictured.
No ETA on that. but
Yeah,
that's-
so a
that's-
lot of the time when I'm modeling a new shirt, I'll also be wearing a toque.
Yeah.
So if you're able to be like, oh yeah, here's all the things that are in here. So there's Anthony with our triple XL. So this is going to be really great because it's a lot easier to kind of put yourself into like, oh, I'm more of a Plouffe or I'm like more of an Anthony body type. How do I want it to fit on me? And kind of looking at how it hangs on them and imagining that for yourself. I mean, we're going to obviously continue to revise this, keep trying to do better, keep adding more variety, but that's kind of the update for today. Pretty exciting freaking day. I'm super stoked.
Yeah, bunch of stuff. Heck yeah. Thanks, Nick.
Toby G asks, can you put the model's height as well? I mean, yeah, we'll get you guys more detail as time goes on. Obviously, in some cases, we don't want to get too granular. I think we're not going to get to the point where we're like, yeah, here's everyone's measurements and height and weight and, shoe size and blood type. Like, I don't think we're going to get that detailed, but we
Once
just
we get to
want
the underwear, that'll get really interesting.
Yeah, we want to get you guys as much detail as we can.
Oh.
All right? All right. Cool.
Why?
Will there be more designs coming down the line in that particular color combo, asks WD Stevens. I have no idea. I
Which
quite frankly don't
particular-
know.
Like this one?
Really liked the aqua yellow color combo that you're wearing.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite two are the pink and aqua, I guess, and the purple.
I actually really liked the green one.
Really liked
But
the
A
purple
Prime
one.
said I should wear this one. And I like this one. I really like the dark green one, yeah.
Oh, the olive.
Olive.
This is olive, Luke. Okay.
Olive drab.
Sarah's my
I just like the idea of a pirate shirt being in olive drab with
a
black
privateer shirt.
privateer, yes.
Let's get the words right.
Yes, it's very important that there's a distinction there.
The word matters a lot.
Extremely important.
Okay? It's a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we jump into our next topic? Oh, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Why don't we jump into our next topic here, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes.
Nintendo pulls an opposite of Valve and makes your old device worse instead of helping you make it better.
Nice. No, I mean, there was dozens of us that owned Wii U's, so
Want to talk? Honestly, I'm kind of upset. So one of the things that prompted me to ditch our Wii which was the kids only cared about Wii games anyway, for a Wii U and do the migration thing, because that was actually kind of cool in its own sort of Nintendo very locked down kind of way. Yeah, so I did the
It was
migration
cool because it was unique.
from the Wii to the Wii U. One of the things that prompted me to do it was the shutting down of the Wii eShop. And I was like, oh, okay, I can't buy like retro games or anything anymore, so this thing is sort of deprecated, so we gave it away and we switched over to the Wii U, and it's like, oh great, so now that's gone too. Like, this sucks. Is the overhead of maintaining this really so high that it doesn't justify
I really don't think so.
that you can't justify the occasional, like, if
To be
people
fair,
are buying this stuff from time to time,
I seriously doubt there's
Probably has
almost
nothing to do
any
with it.
amount of people buying that type of stuff, and I seriously doubt the overhead's very high at all. I really think they're just trying to get people on newer devices that are better at pushing things towards you. That's my things are bad.
well, talk us through it.
So, yeah, eShops are shutting down Wii U, 3DS, late March 2023. So you've still got a while. The shutdown will remove access to the online libraries for both consoles, where many games are still eShop exclusive. Some of the games that are going to be lost in regards to being able to purchase them legally. I mean, there's a long list. I don't think I need to go through all of this.
Maybe pick some highlights for
Yeah,
us.
some of them are kind of surprising. Like, there's a Phoenix Wright game, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Dual Destinies, Pushmo / Crashmo / Stretchmo, which I don't know what that is, but it's highlighted, so I'll go with it. Also, there's a Mario and Donkey Kong game, Mario and Donkey Kong Minis on the Move. I don't know what that is, but it's a Mario game, and it's no longer purchasable, which is surprising. And a bunch of other kind of mostly smaller games, but still, that you won't be able to access properly anymore.
That sucks.
All the like really big names, all the really recognizable titles are accessible somewhere else, but some are getting locked. And even if you purchased them or wanted to purchase them legally on the previous platform, you won't be able to in 2023. So you have a while until then. Yeah, kind of brutal. Apparently, Nintendo started and then removed a preemptive and defensive Q&A, basically saying that they don't have to justify anything to anyone, and people are being unreasonable and should just buy Switch Online. And any remakes that make it into the... I'm sure they didn't word it that way. I think the person who wrote this is a little upset.
Is it Anthony? It's Anthony.
Yeah.
I knew it.
I don't think the person who wrote this is wrong, to be fair.
Anthony. We could just say Anthony at
yeah,
this point,
I
I
don't
think.
think Anthony's
He's
wrong.
out now.
But I think there was some charge behind that. Anthony's take is that they do make one good point. Switch Online is pretty good for finding titles you've never heard of by putting them next to titles that you have. But it's a bit like saying hand in your old game cartridges and pay us to keep playing them, but not all of them. That is absolutely true. That is what they're doing, and it's brutal. For that matter, 3DS and Wii U emulators are unlikely to join Switch Online anytime soon. Very true. But
Yeah,
they
that
are
sucks.
likely to be available elsewhere, like the computer.
Oops.
Dang. While online storefronts have always had this problem looming over them, absolutely, they will always be deprecated eventually if they are fixed to one console. This one seems to have stirred the hornet's nest among fans. That's always going to happen with Nintendo fans.
It's always going to happen with a console that has an install base of like over 100 million units, like the 3DS. Like the Wii U, yeah, sure, fair enough. You could kind of go, this thing doesn't really matter anymore and will never matter. Except that it will. It's going to be this piece of gaming history that, in the same way that the Virtual Boy is what's
I think it moved more units than Virtual Boy. That's the red one. Yeah.
No, I mean it moved more units than Virtual Boy, but I just mean that Virtual Boy is sort of this curiosity. So no matter how
interesting, yeah.
successful or unsuccessful something is, it's still going to be part of gaming history.
Due to how they marketed it, I think for pretty much ever, people are going to look back at Nintendo's historical consoles and go like, wait, what? That was actually its own console? Because so many people thought it was an add-on to the original Wii.
And to not be able to go back and get content for it, like it just, it sucks. And it's just so unnecessary.
This is a big part of the reason why I buy physical Switch games.
That's the thing that makes me so mad. It's not that it's a bad thing. It is a bad thing. but it's how unnecessary the bad thing is. Obviously, in the world, there are much bigger problems than some game marketplace not being available
for sure.
a year from now.
Yeah.
And I've got a year to to put quarters in my swear jar and save up to buy whatever it is that I'd like to buy and download it to my console.
Part of the problem is though, it's just, and I know you're making a point, but
Yeah.
part of the problem with that though is like it's an old console, it's an old portable console, it's an old home console, whichever one you have. It might break. You might still want to play that game, so you go buy another one, and what? You can't
Nothing.
download it.
Nothing, because Nintendo has this extraordinarily anti-consumer approach to game data.
Yeah.
It's still, like, honestly, if there was literally a single gamer in the entire United States Congress, there would be some kind of law against what Nintendo's doing, holding your save game data just hostage.
And most people seem kind of on my side, but I saw at least one comment go by talking about like, oh, they're not going to do that to Switch. They sold so many units. They did that to the Wii.
Yeah, do you know how many Wiis they sold?
They sold so many units of the Wii.
I think
They're
there are more
going to do it to the
Nintendo
Switch.
Wiis than there are like actual Wiis on Earth. Just kidding. There are a lot of penises on Earth.
Yeah, yeah.
World's full of dicks, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it'll happen to the Switch, and there's
course
like,
it will.
I want to be able to go back and play the games that I paid for on the Switch.
Yeah.
I don't-
And you know what sucks is that, again, back to good guy Valve, to be clear, not everything Valve does is right.
Absolutely.
Just want to make that abundantly extra super clear,
Just
all right?
gotta also give them credit when they do things that are right.
We have to give them credit when they do things that are right. Valve has come out and said, if we ever deprecate this platform, we will engineer a way that you'll just still have all your stuff. Like, I don't know what that would look like exactly, and I doubt even they know exactly what that would look like.
Yeah, some type of peer-to-peer. I don't
Some
know.
kind of, okay, download it before this day, and it goes good old games, DRM free. I don't know. I don't know exactly
Yeah.
what that would look like. And since they made that commitment has gotten exponentially more complicated to actually follow through on.
Oh yeah.
Especially now that they've got, partner software like Halo Infinite's a perfect example. I own Halo Infinite on Steam because I can't be arsed to deal with Microsoft's spectacularly broken launcher crap.
Unfortunately, you still have to deal with their accounts and their matchmaking and networking and all that jazz.
Because of how intertwined they are, the experience is terrible. And this is with all the services still like running properly.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to know what that would look like when, Valve doesn't exist anymore. And Valve not existing anymore is actually like kind of a scary proposition to me because aren't they privately held still?
As far as my understanding goes, yeah.
I believe they're privately held, but the thing is that, okay, no, I know they're privately held, but what I don't know is who the shareholders are. That I'm not sure, and I don't... Guys, feel free to let me know in the chat. This is just one of those things that I've been curious about, but never gone out of my way to look up. Because one of the things that I've done as part of owning a business is estate planning. If Yvonne and I get hit by a bus at the same time, do you know what happens to Linus Media Group?
No.
What would be your assumption?
If I remember correctly, because I think we talked about
No.
this.
Give me an assumption. Give me an uneducated assumption then.
Okay.
What would be your layperson's assumption?
Honestly, if I didn't know some of the context that you guys had told me, I would just genuinely have no idea. I would assume that it would go to like next of kin inheritance.
Okay.
And then I have no idea how that would work because your like offspring are too young.
So the way that would typically work is when your offspring are not of legal age yet, there would be
It has
some
to go
kind
to,
of
like, a
trustee.
trust. Yeah.
And they would be
But like who
responsible.
would run the trust? Like there's a lot of things that I
So they would be part of them agreeing to be our trustee. I can't remember exactly what the term is. I think it's trustee. But part of them agreeing to be that would be that we would leave behind a letter of wishes for how we would want the company to be run or whatever the case may be. But here's the problem. The way that inheritance laws work, and to be clear, there's a lot of
Canada.
There's a lot of good things about this particular type of law. I'm not a huge fan of aristocracy just intergenerational wealth that creates like a lord class and a serf class. Like that's not a period of history that we need to go back to, although there are strong arguments to be made that we are already there and have actually managed to zoom past it with the current level of wealth inequality in the world. But that's a separate conversation. It's beyond the scope of this one. So I'm not necessarily against inheritance taxes. The problem is that in the case of an asset like Linus Media Group Incorporated, bequeathing it to a successor is extraordinarily complicated. So instead of me being able to gift shares or leave the company to a next of kin, like mine and Yvonne's children, what would happen is the asset would be placed like in escrow or in trust. It would be held by a neutral party. It would essentially have no owner for a period of time while they get it valued. So the company would have to get valued at that point, and then whoever we did leave it to would have to come up with the cash that they would need to pay the tax on that value of inheritance. And the problem with how companies are valued is that Linus Media, like, they can have these just insane multipliers over EBITDA. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of EBITDA, but it's earnings before tax and I can't remember what the last one is. Blah blah blah. EBITDA. Here we go. Earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. Okay, so a company like ours that's in a growth phase in kind of a hot, trendy industry, online media, could easily have a multiplier of like 10x, even as high as 11, 12, 13x. Now, I got to be honest with you guys. We've only been running Linus Media Group for 9 years. Could I possibly have that kind of cash on hand if I'm anywhere near a sort of responsible business operator?
He's trying to like reinvest in the company, and
because that inheritance tax is deep into double digits. Like, you could end up paying like probably 30-40% plus tax on this inheritance. So if we take that value, let's say for the sake of argument that Linus Media Group makes $1 million a year, okay? If we had a 10x, so let's go conservative. If we had a 10x multiplier in our valuation, that would be $10 million on which they could owe like $3 million, $3 or $4 million or something ridiculous like that. These are intentionally not exact numbers because this is Yvonne's department, not mine. She deals with this stuff. The point is just that it's really complicated, and we wouldn't have 30% of 10 years of earnings sitting in the bank because that would be stupid.
yeah,
So what would happen is the company would have to be sold to some soulless aggregator of media companies, and then my kids would obviously be fine because they'd get a big pile of cash, but everything about Linus Media Group, everything about the way we want to do things would immediately be dead.
gone.
Because it would all be about getting back a return on this gigantic cash investment in acquiring this company. And so I forget why I started this conversation, but there's basically no way to leave the company to, right. If Valve is primarily owned still by Gabe Newell and family or co-founders.
So I looked that up.
And they get old and or die or are not interested anymore or whatever the case may be.
Hopefully they have billions.
Yeah, well, I think they probably
What
do.
it's going to cost.
Which is convenient.
No, just, I mean, in the bank.
Well, I think they do.
So, yeah.
So there's that.
That's
But
fair. So Newell owns more than 50%. The rest of it was buried in a Forbes article that honestly, I literally could not navigate through the ads because there's too many on the page. And
Hilarious.
It was bouncing the text around. So I installed an ad blocker live. To
Yeah,
try to do
should I
it.
go to your screen?
But then no. But
You
then
know that those are actually like not allowed on company computers, right? Just
well,
remove it when you're done.
I will do that.
Okay.
But even with the ad blocker, I couldn't. So I couldn't read it because the ads kept reloading and moving the text around, which is the only reason why I installed it. And then I couldn't read it with the ad blocker either because they detect that and then block you from seeing the page. So I actually don't know because it was literally unreadable.
Got it.
But he owns at least 50%, and after that, I'm not sure.
True Scott says, you still never told us what actually happens to LMG if something happens to you. I don't know. What happens is it gets parted out and my kids get the proceeds, essentially. I would like for there to be a better plan. We talked about this, I think, on last week's WAN show where I was discussing the possibility of taking on investment. That would actually be one of the main reasons that I could think of for us to change our ownership structure. Because one of the goals, and I've said this since day one, is I want to be a real company, right? And real companies don't just die when their founder dies. So figuring out some way that we can create an ownership structure that can last longer than my beating heart would be a goal that I would have while I'm still here and while I'm still alive. But I don't know a way to do that without losing what's special about what we're doing here. There was an LMG Clips video going through where I talked through that, and I read through all the comments on it. There were some really good comments. A lot of it was stuff I was already aware of, but there was some stuff in there that I just, honestly hadn't really thought of it that way. Like people with more of a financial background than I have. And, basically the thing that, the key piece that I didn't know, like I said, my business knowledge is all School of Hard Knocks. I've learned everything that I've learned because I've had to learn it. And one of the things I didn't know was that not only does a publicly held company become soulless because it serves its shareholders, but it's actually legally obligated to be soulless and put its shareholders first before anything else.
Yeah.
And what's really complicated about that is that, from my point of view, we could make some really short-term, fiscally irresponsible decisions that I see, in my vision, having an enormous payoff in the long term.
Oh, okay.
But if the shareholders disagree,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
then they can make an argument that I was not acting in their best interest. They can push me out, and then they can sit and wallow in their own filth with no vision now. And, that's what happens to a lot of companies.
It has happened.
It's happened to a lot of companies.
Yeah.
Founders get pushed out. There's no vision left. They chase short-term rewards. They do whatever Wall Street tells them to do, and then they just have no soul. So I just don't know what to do.
Yeah, I don't think this is actually the same, and I'm not exactly saying he was like a good person or anything. But Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple. I don't know if it was through the same means, but I know he was forced out of Apple at one point, and that's pretty crazy to think about, right?
Lots of really good questions here. You are assuming YouTube and Floatplane will be relevant in 20, 30, 40 years. I assume nothing. That's why we're so diversified. That's why the lab's coming. That's why LTT Store is such a huge push for us.
To put in your mouth.
That I assume nothing?
No, that you assume that Floatplane and YouTube are going to be around in 30, 40 years. You said nothing even remotely like that.
I sure don't.
I have no idea where that came from.
Linus Media Group is a media company. Right now, YouTube is a very favorable platform for us to publish on. But if that changed in the future, we'd be on it. Don't worry. We got this.
That's why you guys are on.
Fregler says, is there a way to do some kind of employee ownership plan in that case? Believe it or not, that is something that we have looked into very extensively, and unfortunately, the exact same problems exist. So if I wanted to get paid, the employees literally have to pay a fair market value. We have to make some kind of argument. So if I wanted to give them a deal, I basically have to put together a legal document that says, this is why the deal is justified. I think we're only worth 5x EBITDA because I'm walking away immediately and I'm the frickin' man. And
I'm the man.
They're going to have trouble.
I'm the dude.
But I would actually have to do that.
Yeah.
Legally speaking, I would have to do that because any additional value that the asset was found to have, I think there are potential fraud liabilities. There are potential taxation liabilities. Like there's all these problems if we don't sell it at a fair market value. So that's problem number one. So they have to actually have enough money to buy the stupid thing, which we're again because we've been growing for so long and growing at such a great rate. Like look at the size of this company. There's like 60 people here now. It's ridiculous. That multiplier ends up being pretty high, and it ends up being a lot, like an unreasonable amount of money. So that's issue number one. And issue number two is if we wanted to gift it to them, it's still the tax problem. They still have to pay taxes. It's the exact same problem as my kids. So it's really stupid, honestly speaking. Another thing, what would happen to LTT if only Linus died? Nothing against Yvonne, but there are a lot of responsibilities that would be extremely hard to take on all at once. I think you guys overestimate how important I am. I'm a pretty face. And I do like to think that Yvonne and I are the yin to each other's yang. She's very detail-oriented. She's very organized. I am very creative. I tend to have sort of like a big picture vision, but I absolutely lack the focus to actually put all the pieces in place to get there. That's what she has. We absolutely complement each other nearly perfectly. I told her if I believed in that, I would say that she was my soulmate. Obviously, that's stupid. That's not how the world works. But if I believed in that, I'd say she was, because it's like we were made for each other, just how perfectly the puzzle pieces fit together. And anyway, the point is that you guys, I think, underestimate what she does, and I think you overestimate what I do. And what you also, I think, underestimate is the talents and the experience of the people who work here. Look at a James, or an Anthony, or a Colton, or a Nick, or a Luke. Those 5 names that I just named, okay, let's go through them. 5 years, 6 or 7, I think Colton's up to. I think Colton's up to 7. You're at 10 at least.
I'm
10 or 11.
Yeah.
So hold on, can you add these up for me? We're at the 23 so far.
I think I'm slightly over 12.
Nick's at 8 years, so that's 31. And what was the last name? I think I said Anthony. Anthony is at 5. So that is 36 years of experience in online media. And I picked just 5 people under this roof. This is an incredible team.
I mean,
they
no
will survive
offense
without me
whatsoever. If you were randomly deleted, success would go down a lot, but we could keep the ship floating.
You'd survive.
If Yvonne randomly disappeared, I highly question the ship floating for
The
very
ship,
long.
I think the ship could float long term. I think the short term turbulence might sink it before it gets a chance.
Yeah.
That's the challenge, is that what she does is so much more important day to day than what I do, if that kind of makes sense to you guys. So that's what's tough about it. There's just so many things to consider. I wish it was as simple as writing in my will. If I die, I would like it to be divided up into 60ths and bequeathed to the employees. But what would actually happen is it would be divided up into 60ths and sold to the highest bidder. And there would be nothing left of its soul. So we need to figure that out. But fortunately, we hopefully have some time. That's where I'm at on that. We should talk about sponsors, because if we don't talk about sponsors, then the ship will definitely not float. The show is brought to you today by Corsair. I love it. Thanks to Corsair. Their 5000T RGB case features distinctive contours and 208 individually addressable RGB LEDs. My friends, over 200 RGB LEDs. It comes pre-installed with 3 Corsair Light Loop RGB fans. It includes a smart controller for fan speeds on up to 6 fans with dual lighting channels for multiple RGB components, removable front and roof mesh airflow panels for easy maintenance, and 2 tool-free hinged side panels. It's backed by Corsair's 2-year warranty for extended peace of mind, and it's available now, so you can check it out at the link down below. It's amazing how far Corsair has come, is it not?
Yeah.
From releasing that one case that was thoughtful but flawed, to just being the case manufacturer, like the default.
It's pretty nuts.
It's just crazy.
They make so many things.
Their culture is bananas. Like, at risk of saying too much, one of Corsair's criterions for entering any category is that they need to be able to see a path to being number 1 or number 2 worldwide. And I'm like, well, you got to set the bar high, right?
Aggro.
Yeah.
I mean, they do it pretty consistently, so.
The show is also brought to you by Squarespace. Do you need a website? If you answered yes, check out Squarespace. If you answered no, there's a good chance you're wrong. Check out Squarespace. They've got tons of templates that'll cover a large variety of categories of websites. If you need something for your blog or your wedding or your business, Squarespace has got you covered. You can get a domain quickly through Squarespace if you need one, or port over an existing domain that you already own. And one of these days, my business team, a representative of which is sitting over there, is going to give me some more cool talking points for Squarespace, because they actually have so many cool features that we never talk about. Jake, I want more Squarespace talking points. It's a great platform. We use it for LTXexpo.com as well as LinusMediaGroup.com, and it's so easy to maintain. It's like just painless. So painless. So get started with a free 14-day trial and head to squarespace.com/WAN to get 10% off your first purchase. Did you want to say something?
Okay, so someone.
Should I go off the sponsor thing? Are you going to say something controversial?
Yeah, no, you can. I uninstalled AdBlock. You can share my screen if you want.
Oh, okay.
It's all ads. The whole page. There's one tiny little bar at the top, and then it's ads. Okay. You can close it now. There's nothing there. Flowplane chat asked me if we're going to talk about the New York Times article, and I was like, what one? And they linked it to me, and I was like, oh yeah, that merch one. So I clicked on it and I think you know what's there. I can't show them. So.
Would you like to hear something really funny?
Sure.
The link that I tweeted sharing that article was a privateered link. I didn't know. So the author of the article did send me a copy of the article, but they actually didn't do it as quickly as one of my bros in. Did they post it in the YouTuber Lounge or in Worth Reading / watching / listening to? I'm actually not sure. This is like my favorite Discord ever. Oh yeah, here it is. So username TA. You know who you are. I didn't recognize this domain, messaging-custom-newsletters.nytimes.com. I assumed that was like the official source. So before the author sent it to me, I copy-pasted this one onto Twitter. I didn't notice that it was formatted super weird. It says subscriber-only newsletter, which I didn't really look at. And clearly I'm not a subscriber, and clearly this newsletter is totally working just fine.
I'm wondering if they just don't bother to have any of that stuff. I wonder if that guy's or whoever that is a paying subscriber, and they just send them links that just don't deliver any of that stuff or something. I don't know, because that looks like an official link.
It does. So anyway,
That's
people were replying to my tweet being like, actually, you just shared like a paywall stripped version of the thing. I was like, well, I'm not going to undo it at this point.
Yeah, wow, that's funny.
So yeah, we can talk about the article. They got a lot of things right from our chat. There's a couple of little details that are probably not quite how I would describe things, but overall, I think what was really the coolest thing about that article was being featured in a positive context. It feels like a lot of traditional media is
anytime they talk about YouTubers, it's just doom and gloom.
Just looking for an excuse to crap on my colleagues and my entire industry.
Yep.
And I get it. A lot of the time, the negative things they're writing about are super negative, and they deserve negative publicity.
Sure.
But where's the article about Tom Scott? Just like
Tom Scott
being awesome.
Being awesome because he's Tom Scott. Or just like massive charity drives that
Where
a lot
is
of
it?
modern influencers do.
Where is it?
Stuff. Yeah.
And it's frustrating for me. Honestly, I don't expect a ton of the attention for myself. I have grown accustomed to being just quietly doing my thing over here. The tech niche is like the least. I think it has the highest size to sex appeal ratio on the entire platform because it's actually a gigantic vertical, but no one talks about it. No one cares. And that's changed a little bit over the years. When I went to the last creator summit that I attended, Marquez, for example, was actually like featured in the thing. And I was like, holy crap, someone from our space actually got noticed. YouTube did a thing with us actually where they did a billboard campaign and they just like plastered me on billboards, which I was pretty tickled about.
Promoting something that isn't just like a late night TV show host.
Yeah,
Very cool.
exactly. I was
Thanks,
like, oh, that's
guys.
pretty cool. So they've actually done a better job recently.
Yeah.
You got to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
But the point is, I don't expect it to be me. I just expect them to like try a little, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be whatever PewDiePie's latest controversy is or whatever, toxic prank channel or, like, whatever, minor got exploited by someone. And, like, to be clear, absolutely.
All horrible things.
All horrible, and you should say it's horrible.
Sure.
And, okay, I think there's room for a little more nuance with the PewDiePie stuff. Some of the stuff has been... I'll say more nuanced. There.
If there's horrible things, you can call them
You got to call them horrible,
but you should probably show the other side of the coin.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking for. And so that was honestly the best thing about it, was someone reaching out just to have a positive conversation, be like, hey, look, isn't this cool? Because it is cool. It's totally cool. I think it's cool.
We have one more sponsor.
And it's brought to you by Zoho. Thanks to Zoho CRM. Zoho CRM is a 360-degree solution